Making choices about what happens when you leave school can feel overwhelming. Up till now, the when, what and where you study have been relatively simple to decide. But as you approach the end of secondary school, you'll have lots of big decisions to make. And no sooner as you've made them, people will start asking, what's next? Trying to think about what you want to do with the rest of your life is too big a question to ask. Most adults I know still don't have a clue. Start with smaller questions, break them down into little chunks and take it one step at a time. As part of FE Choices Week, we're here to help you do just that. We've created a series of videos, fact sheets, presentations and student planning tools to help you learn about what your options are when you leave school and where those options might lead. We can't give you the answers, but we can give you all the information you'll need to make an informed decision about the next step. Plus, we've brought everything together in one place. The Stockport Jobs Match website contains everything from provider details to prospectuses, course listings to career guides. For today's session, we're going to be talking about vocational and technical qualifications, or VTQs, looking at Btecs in particular, before briefly covering short courses and study programmes. We explain what they are, the study methods, entry requirements, career prospects and learning environments, as well as the benefits of each and the key things to think about when making your decision. The important thing is to use the information you hear here today to go away and start having conversations with your friends, teachers, careers advisors, family, or even online. Get talking about FE choices and the different options available, your career goal and your plan B. Okay, let's get started. So vocational and technical qualifications, or VTQs, help you prepare and demonstrate what you can do as well as what you know. Historically, they've been linked to trades and crafts, and one of the most famous organisations linked to VTQs is City and Guilds, an educational organisation established in the 1870s with the aim of improving and standardising training for engineers and other craftsmen. If you were to compare the VTQs on offer and the academic qualifications such as A-levels, you would clearly see that the assessment on the VTQs is more practical in nature and focused on developing both the theory and practical skills related to a job role, sector or industry, whereas academic qualifications focus more on the knowledge of the subject. If you are more practical and like to learn by doing rather than studying, VTQs might be something you're interested in pursuing. You'll need to demonstrate competency and knowledge against a framework of knowledge, skills and behaviour so that the assessments will be varied to ensure that all of this is captured. You might have already undertaken a vocational course at school. For many Year 9 pupils, a Btec or OCR, Cambridge National is a qualification that they might find on the curriculum for subjects like applied science, sports studies, business and finance, and music, amongst others. When it comes to the difference between a vocational and a technical qualification, this is a much harder thing to define. One way of describing it, as there are many overlaps, is that a technical qualification will teach and test a specific skill, whereas a vocational qualification could be applied more generally. Technical qualifications might provide you with a licence to be able to do a certain job, like drive a forklift truck, fit a gas boiler, or become a veterinary nurse, for example. Or they may exempt you from having to do exams by showing you have already been classed as competent against the required standards, like accountancy, for example. VTQs are available at any age, which is why you might encounter them later on in your career through either your own desire to retrain or upskill, or at the employer's request. These can be government funded, which means they're free to study, but it depends on a few things. Whilst you're under the age of 23, VTQs are generally free, but this depends on the level that you are undertaking, the qualification itself, and whether or not you have an educational healthcare plan for which there is different guidance and exceptions. Generally speaking, up to a level 3 and under the age of 19, you will find FE colleges, training providers and apprenticeships will not charge for a VTQ, such as a level 3 Btec, for example. Remember that after the age of 19, you are classed as an adult and the government funding is different. And with an EHC plan, there are also different rules. We've introduced the idea of qualification levels in previous modules, and it's something that you'll want to familiarise yourself with as you start to make decisions about the courses you want to take. VTQs stretch from entry levels, roughly equivalent to Key Stages 1 to 3, all the way up to level 8, roughly equivalent to a doctorate or PhD. So there's something for every stage of career planning. Some of the most popular subjects studied on vocational courses are business, ICT, sport and health and social. Choosing these subjects will still allow you to progress into a range of careers, and taking a quick look at the college and provider websites will give you some ideas of the options available to you. If you're in any doubt as to whether it's the right time to narrow down your options to focus on a particular pathway, ask questions and remember to do your research first. If you're considering applying for a vocational technical qualification, remember at some point in your career the likelihood is you will. It's important to read the entry requirements and understand the level and the type of course. Just as with AS and A levels being both level 3 qualifications but not the same in length, and weighting when it comes to UCAS points, not all vocational qualifications are made equal either. The awarding bodies who design and govern offer the same qualification in various sizes, for example, an award, certificate or diploma. When planning your next steps, you'll need to consider this. So studying a Btec extended diploma at level 3 converts into 168 points at distinction, but studying a distinction at a Btec level 3 national certificate will only give you 28. Sounds confusing, but all the information is available online, so make sure that you read into it first. And if you want to study at a higher level afterwards, you'll need to know how many points you need to achieve to get to that next stage. As always, for an accredited qualification, you will need to satisfy some entry requirements. For a level 3 course, the rule of thumb applies. Demonstrate that you've successfully studied at the level below the one you're applying for. So, for example, a level 3 VTQ will normally ask for 4 or 5 GCSE passes, that's grades 9 to 4 or A star to C, including maths and English or the equivalent. If you've studied BTECs at school, you can ask your teachers to explain how they equate to a level 2 GCSE equivalent. But remember, these are guidelines, and it may still be possible for you to successfully apply even if you don't meet all the entry requirements, and you'll still be able to reset GCSEs or functional skills alongside your VTQ depending on the provider. The length of a VTQ depends on the level and size of the qualification that you'll be completing. The awarding bodies who design the courses and oversee the assessments and standards issue guidelines stating how many hours each unit and course should be studied for, and your provider will plan these into a timetable and explain them to you when you apply for the course. VTQs will vary greatly in how and where you study. Remember that these are qualifications that a huge range of people study at various points in their careers, so they're flexible and lots of different options are available. Some of the courses you can find online and study at your own pace. Some of them won't have a tutor to help you, and you'll need to be motivated and disciplined to complete them. Others might be completed in the workplace by an assessor or as part of a short course, a day, a couple of days, or even a couple of hours, such as a first aid or fire marshal, for example. But there are lots of other shorter VTQs you will come across as you climb the career ladder. For larger certificates and diplomas, you'll need to commit a more considerable amount of time, at least 6 months, and more likely 1 or 2 years of studying at least 1 day a week, completing assignments and projects in your own time or in those timetable gaps we talked about in the A-level and T-level module. The VTQs you'll find offered by FE colleges are usually substantial level 3 certificates and diplomas, and this is because the large majority of students who apply for college will do so with the option of university in mind, and larger qualifications will help you earn the UCAS points that you'll need to apply. To summarise, VTQs are varied. Where and how you study one will depend on the point in your career that you're at and the purpose of studying that qualification. If you're studying a VTQ as part of an apprenticeship, you might find that you attend college for 1 day a week with other students and apprentices, or you may find that an assessor comes to see you in your workplace to give you or a group of apprentices a lesson and support you to complete those assignments. If you study a VTQ at college, it will more than likely be delivered in a classroom environment environment with some work-based elements, or a workshop, mock-up facilities within the college that simulate the real place work environment, such as a hair salon, a garage, or even a plane. The most important thing to think about and keep in mind when you are making your choices is to consider what comes next. You've been at school for a really long time and will have had very little choice so far in where you go or how you study, so the next choices come thick and fast. The next steps you take will be short compared to what's come before. So you might spend years building up to your GCSEs level 2 qualifications, but the next steps come really quickly. So almost as soon as you've made the choice about what to do after school, as we mentioned at the start, people will start asking you, what's happening next? What are you going to do when you've finished? What do you want to do for a job? What's your career goals? You don't have to have your whole life mapped out. Some of you will have definite career goals, and that's great. And for others, you'll have absolutely no idea. Rest assured that that is completely normal. After VTQs, there are several paths that you can take, and it depends on your personal career goals as to which one is right for you. You could go into higher education, and there's a number of options available to you here. Some will depend on the grades you achieved at level 3 and the courses that you took. A level 3 VTQ will convert into what's called UCAS points. This is a grading system that universities use because the pathways to a degree are varied, and it'd be difficult to list all of the combinations of entry requirements for each degree course, so they set up a point system that's universal. Each degree course states how many points you need to apply for that course, and each grade you achieve at level 3 will be worth so many UCAS points, and you then add these up to see if you have enough. The lower the grade or qualification, the lower the points. But you don't have to go to university to take a degree. You could apply for a degree apprenticeship, for example, or start studying long distance through the Open University, where you can break your degree down into smaller units, which you study in your own time whilst working or volunteering, for example. You could take smaller steps and do a level 4 or 5 course, such as a higher national certificate, a HNC, or a higher national diploma, a HND. You can study any of these at college or an FE provider, or you might decide to combine them with work and earn some money whilst applying for a higher apprenticeship. You might decide at this point that you're ready for work and enter the jobs market, become self-employed, or do some volunteering. Remember that you can always come back to education and training at a later stage if you want to or need to, and there's a real wide variety of options available to you. So if your plan A doesn't work out, it's a really good idea to weigh up your options so you know what your backup options are. VTQs are normally modular-based learning, which means that you study a unit at a time, and these will be assessed in stages as you learn. The assessments are varied and include things like written or multiple choice tests, projects, group or individual, role plays, professional discussions, assignments, which could be things like posters, essays, booklets, etc. You may or may not need to sit a test which is externally marked. If this is something that makes you feel anxious, remember to ask questions at the enrolment stage and ask how the provider will help you prepare. VTQs are also accredited, so another advantage, and that means that you'll work towards a standardised assessment framework which ensures that all students are marked fairly and consistently, and that employers and higher education providers can understand the standard that you've achieved, and therefore the knowledge, skills and behaviours that you already have. We wanted to cover briefly one of the most popular vocational qualifications that are instantly recognised by employers and providers, the Btec. They are named after the awarding body who introduced them, the Business and Technology Education Council, which was formed in 1974 and who introduced the first award in 1984. In 2018, the Social Market Foundation reported that around 26% of applicants to university had at least one Btec qualification. In our region of the UK, this is even higher, with almost half of the students in the Northwest entering university with a Btec. However, there are still some universities and courses who won't accept a Btec as one of the entry requirements, and you will need to take A-levels. So it's really important to plan ahead a couple of steps post-16 if you can. But it's clear from those uptake numbers that Btecs are a really, really popular choice. There are over 2,000 qualifications available to study as a Btec, covering 16 different sectors of the economy, so lots of choice out there. They are a blended delivery of theory and practical knowledge, skills and behaviours, and they're assessed in stages. Btecs, like all other VTQs, will vary in length and duration and how you study them. All of the details should be clearly described on the provider website or in their prospectus. A tutor or advisor should also explain to you how many units, etc. you'll need to study and how the assessment and complaint system works as part of your induction. Btecs are flexible and each qualification can be tailored by the provider. There are usually a set number of core mandatory units that every person who studies that qualification will have to pass, but then there is a list of optional units which providers can pick from to make up the rest of the qualification. The awarding body assigns a number of points to each unit on the list, and the provider picks units that adds up to the total of points needed for the qualification. So in this way, you may have the same qualification, a BTEC Level 3 Diploma in Business Admin, as another student. But if you study at different providers, you might have completed different optional units on top of the standard ones. These optional units are chosen by the provider and not by you as the student, and you will study the same optional units as other students on your college course, so it's important to ask what they might be. Since you might have studied different units to other people, it's also important to let future employers know by listing the units that you've taken and the individual grades on your CV. So that gives employers a really clear idea of what your skills and prior knowledge are. How each unit is assessed is decided by the awarding body. They will issue guidance to the tutor to explain what you need to demonstrate and how. Some units require several pieces of evidence in order to pass them, such as a test, a poster and a role play. Others might just have one big project assignment or even an external test. Your tutor will give you clear guidance as to what you need to work towards for each pass, merit and distinction. There's lots of different ways that you can study a BTEC, and it'll depend on how and why you are doing one, but all of them will help you prepare for the world of work through developing transferable skills and sector-specific knowledge. One of the exciting things about a BTEC compared to A-levels is that part of the course will involve you applying what you have learned and developing those practical skills. Part of the assessment framework will involve your tutor or assessor observing you completing practical tasks, and this might be things like cutting hair, creating a spreadsheet, answering a phone call, changing a tyre, or evacuating an aircraft. You might practice these in the classroom or through work experience, or your provider might have its own workshops, restaurants, beauty salons, or aircraft mock-ups. Having a tour around the facilities is important because it might change your mind about where you study. The benefits of studying a BTEC are that they combine theory, classroom-based learning with practical skill development. They're purposely designed to help you progress in a sector or job and will allow you to demonstrate to an employer or university that you have the key knowledge, skills and behaviours to undertake that role. BTECs are just one of the many VTQs which are widely recognised by businesses and higher education. You'll work to an assessment framework which ensures you are at a certain standard. Just remember that not all HE providers will recognise a BTEC as an alternative to A-levels, and not all career paths will benefit from you taking this route, so check first. After a BTEC, there are lots of options open to you, most of which you should be familiar with by now. So you can go on to higher education, either jumping to a degree or taking smaller steps in the form of level 4 courses. You can do these as a full-time student or as an apprentice. You could decide to enter the workforce either as an employee, a volunteer, or by setting up your own company, or you might decide to study further by sidestepping and doing a different subject or taking a smaller course such as a technical course to acquire a specific skill or learn a license or something similar, for example. As with any step after school, it's important to consider a number of things. The future, where do you want to get to? Where can this qualification take you? The now, what are your current skills and interests? How have you found learning at level 2 or 3? How do you like to learn things? Results, if you don't get the results you need, what are your options? Information, where can you find more information on VTQs about where you can study, what you can study and how you can apply? Placements, remember that these are practical skills which need to be observed. If you have to do these on a placement or work experience, how will you find some that are suitable? Do you have to find your own? Will somebody help you? And if you can't do a placement, what effect does this have on what you're trying to achieve? We're now going to move on to talk about short courses and study programmes. There's only a short bit left, but if you feel like you've absorbed enough information for today, pause here and come back later to find out more. Maybe you could chat to groups or friends about some of the questions that we've just raised. Moving on, short courses are what they say they are, small bite-sized units of study. They usually focus on gaining a particular skill or on one specific subject or goal. They may or may not link up to a bigger qualification. Not all short courses are accredited. Remember, this means that there isn't a set standard that you need to achieve by means of a test or a demonstration, but you might get a participation certificate or a completion certificate, and some courses of this nature might not be recognised by colleges or employers. It might also be the case that your short course does require you to be assessed, but that the awarding body isn't recognised by colleges or employers. Short courses might not always be free either. Since the government will always pay for courses which they have put on approved funding register, you may find that even though you are under the age of 19, you might still have to pay. If this is the case, you may be eligible for funding or student loans or grants, and it's worth asking if this is possible. However, there are so many variations of short courses. Lots of these are fully funded and are a really good way to either top up your learning or as a replacement to traditional routes. It'd be really difficult to tell you about all the different types of courses and all of their entry requirements. The provider running the course should clearly tell you what they need in order for you to successfully apply. There may be no entry requirements except an interest and commitment to complete the course, or you might have to be a certain age, for example. On a short course, you might be working independently, either in the workplace, at home, or at a college. For example, completing a health and safety induction. Or it might be that there are several of you willing to learning together as a team, such as developing confidence and communication skills in workshops online or face-to-face. Your course might last as little as an hour or up to a few months, so make sure you check out the course description to see what you are signing up to. As we've already covered, there are lots of ways that you might take a short course. Knowing your own strengths and weaknesses when it comes to learning will help you pick the right delivery method for you. Short courses are focused, so you'll have less time to develop the skills and knowledge, but they'll be designed to let you practice and intensely study with that aim. Whether this is writing a CV and preparing for interviews, or learning to drive a forklift truck, gain your CSCS card, or work towards a food hygiene certificate, you can be certain that the content is geared towards a specific goal. The benefits of a short course are that they provide the opportunity to dip your toe into a subject and see if you like it. You can set your own pace and build up your confidence, as well as picking courses that appeal to you and let you focus on building the set of skills you want. Below the age of 18, you'll need to combine short courses with working or volunteering as well. What happens after a short course very much depends on the destination you have in mind. It might be that if you were unsure of what to study after school, and after a few short courses you found something you want to do, at this point you could apply for more short courses, a longer course, a study programme, a traineeship, an apprenticeship, or full-time college. You might apply for a full-time job or turn your volunteering experience into a paid position. You might have decided to do short courses because you know that you want to be self-employed and have been working towards this, so it tops up your learning. If so, there's lots of help and information out there to get you started, as well as communities of other self-employed people who can offer you friendly advice and guidance. As with any choice you're about to make, take your time to consider all the options and the implications. Talk to those you share a house with, or if you're moving into semi-independent or independent living, make sure you know of all the help you're entitled to and where and how to find it. Use the resources on the website as a starting point to help you plan, and think of a number of different ways to get to your goal. Which one will suit you best? Lastly, we're going to come on to study programmes, and these are the lesser known option for young people. They're tailor-made programmes which are made up of packages of qualifications designed to suit your needs. Like all of the options we've talked about today, they vary in length, but most will be around 6 months long. The programmes are built around a core vocational qualification which helps you prepare for the career that you're interested in. The level and size of qualification you will need to undertake will depend on your prior achievement and your end goal. You won't necessarily take a Btec, but because study programmes are government funded, it will be a VTQ. VQT, which is on the government's approved funding list, so it'll be accredited and recognised by providers and employers. As study programmes are built around the individual, they won't all have the same entry requirements. There are common eligibility criteria though. You must not already be in full-time education. You need to be between 16 to 18 years of age when you start. This isn't the case for those young people who have an EHC plan for whom there are different funding guidelines, and you need to meet the academic requirements. But this is usually at least the level below the lowest grade offered by the providers. So for providers who offer entry 3 maths and English, you'll need to be at high end of a level 2 entry level 3 to qualify. Now, study programmes are blended learning. You'll have some classroom-based learning as well as work experience. You may have some elements of online learning or independent study, which more providers may have adopted after COVID-19 changes. Work experience will also be a considerable part of your programme, and you should receive support to find a work placement which helps you progress onto your chosen career. Compared to your school experience, study programmes are very short. Most students upon leaving will progress onto a work-based programme such as a traineeship or apprenticeship or enter the workforce. A large portion of students who excel on their work experience are kept on by the employer, who might offer them a paid job or an apprenticeship, for example. There are a couple of different components to a study programme, which will be the same no matter the provider delivering it. You'll need to take a core vocational qualification, work experience, and functional skills or GCSE maths and English if you haven't already achieved a pass in both. Some providers will offer you the chance to take functional skills level 2 and a GCSE. One of the appealing benefits of a study programme is that you can progress much faster onto your chosen career. If it's upskilling your maths and English, which is making progressing onto an apprenticeship or employment difficult, you can gain these qualifications in as little as 6 months, as opposed to a full year at college. You'll also gain a lot of work experience, at least 51 hours, in a placement which suits your end career goal. If the thought of a mix of classroom learning and work experience sounds good to you, then a study programme could be a good option. But what happens after you've finished? As we've said, lots of students use their work experience and qualifications to secure employment or apprenticeships. For some students, though, a study programme is the perfect short springboard to let them resit those GCSEs and gain another qualification, which then enables them to meet the entry requirements for the college course they originally wanted. Whatever you decide to do after school, make sure you weigh up all the options. A study programme is a full-time course, so won't affect any benefits that your parents, guardians or carers might be receiving, but it's also quite short. So you will need to plan ahead and have your next step in mind almost as soon as you start. You'll receive guidance and one-to-one support to help with your career choices throughout your programme. You might not have the same range of subjects to choose from on a study programme, so you might need to explore and understand what the transferable skills are if you want to move on to something slightly different afterwards. A work placement is a mandatory part of the study programme. If you aren't ready to go into the work environment, this might not be the right option for you. It's important to discuss this with the provider, as well as ask how a placement will be found and who they currently work with. I hope you found this module interesting and informative. I know that we've covered a lot. Remember that this is just the starting point, and there's lots more information available on the Stockport Jobs Match website, where you can find career guides, employer videos and resources which can help you plan your path. The GMAX website also has lots of resources that you can use. If you've got more questions after today's presentation, it might be useful for you to tune in to some of the webinars that we'll be hosting with providers. They'll give you a real insight into some of the live Btecs, vocational and technical qualifications, short courses and study programmes that they're currently offering, and the different subjects and learning environments available. Thank you.